Have you ever worked so hard for something that it felt like your whole life depended on it? Now imagine finally getting it, only to wake up one morning and hear your own dad say, "We sold your car for your sister." That's what happened to me. And I can promise you this, my story didn't end the way they expected. My name is Jason. I was 16 when all of this happened, and honestly, I thought life was finally turning around for me. I grew up in a family that, from the outside, looked normal. My dad worked long shifts at a factory. My mom stayed home, making sure bills were paid and food was on the table. And then there was my younger sister, Emma. Emma was 2 years younger than me, but you would think she was royalty the way my parents treated her. She was always the golden child, the one who got praised for every little thing she did. If she brought home a drawing from art class, my parents acted like she'd painted the Mona Lisa. If she got a C in school, they excused it and said, "At least she tried." Me? I was the invisible one. The one who was expected to be responsible, to help, to do chores without being asked. And no matter what I did, it was never good enough. But I learned to live with it. I figured if I wanted something in life, I'd have to earn it myself. And that's exactly what I did. The car, my dream, my freedom. From the day I turned 14, I started saving money. I worked small jobs, mowing lawns, shoveling snow, babysitting for neighbors. And once I was old enough, I got a part-time job at the local grocery store, stocking shelves and bagging groceries. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid. Every paycheck, I put money aside in a jar under my bed. I didn't waste it on snacks or video games like other kids. I had one goal: to buy my first car. And finally, after 2 years of working every spare hour, I had enough saved. It wasn't enough for something shiny and new, but it was enough for a used sedan I found in a local ad. The car was old, the paint was scratched, and it needed repairs, but to me, it was perfect. I'll never forget the first time I drove it. The windows rolled down, the music blasting from an old crackly speaker, the wind hitting my face. I felt free. For the first time in my life, I had something that was truly mine. Something no one else could control. Or at least, that's what I thought. That car wasn't just a car. It was proof. Proof that I could stand on my own 2 feet. Proof that I didn't need to be the forgotten kid in my family forever. When I sat behind that wheel, I felt like I finally had a voice. I wasn't just Jason, Emma's older brother. I was Jason, the guy who worked hard, saved, and made his dream real. Every Saturday, I spent hours cleaning it, scrubbing the wheels, polishing the hood. Neighbors would see me and laugh, saying, "Jason, that car will never look new." But I didn't care. To me, it shined brighter than anything. That car was my escape from the walls of my house, from Emma's constant bragging, from my dad's cold stares, from feeling invisible. When I turned the key in the ignition, I felt alive. Then came the morning everything changed. I had worked a late shift the night before. By the time I came home, I was exhausted. I parked my car in the driveway, like always, gave it one last proud look, and went inside. The next morning, I rushed outside, eager to drive to school. But when I stepped onto the driveway, I froze. My car was gone. At first, my mind raced through possibilities. Had I parked it on the street instead? Did it get towed? Maybe Dad borrowed it without telling me. But as the seconds ticked by, panic set in. The space was empty. Silent. I stormed back into the house. "Mom, Dad, Where's my car? That's when my dad looked up from his coffee, as if it was nothing, and said the words that shattered me. We sold your car for your sister. I thought I'd misheard him. What? My voice cracked. We sold it, he repeated calmly, like it was no big deal. Emma needed the money more than you. She's starting college soon. She has expenses. You'll get another car one day. Don't be selfish. For a second, I couldn't even speak. My chest felt tight, my face hot. That car was mine. I finally shouted. I bought it with my own money. You had no right. But Dad just glared at me, his voice cold. Don't raise your voice. You live under my roof. That car was parked in my driveway. You'll be fine. Emma needed it more. And then, as if to twist the knife even deeper, Emma walked in from the kitchen, holding shopping bags. She smiled. Actually smiled. Thanks, Jason, she said sweetly. You really came through for me. Her words burned into me like acid. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab those bags and throw them out the door. But instead, I just stood there, shaking. I realized in that moment that my parents never saw me as their son. Not really. I was just the backup, the worker, the one they could sacrifice whenever Emma needed something. And that car? That wasn't just a car. That was my life's work. And they took it from me like it was nothing. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. All I could hear were Dad's words echoing in my head. We sold your car for your sister. My fists clenched under the blanket. My teeth ground together until my jaw hurt. Something inside me snapped. If they thought I was just going to roll over and accept this, they didn't know me at all. Because the next morning, when something pulled into our driveway, it wasn't just any car. It was the beginning of a plan that would change everything. When I woke up the next morning, my chest was still heavy. I had barely slept. My eyes were burning from staring at the ceiling all night. But my brain was racing. Every memory of Emma's smirk, every cold word from my dad, it was stuck on repeat. And that's when I made myself a promise. I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. On my way to school that morning, walking because I had no car, I kept replaying everything in my head. I thought about the years I worked, mowing lawns, stocking shelves, saving every dollar while Emma wasted hers on clothes and makeup. And then the image of my dad sipping coffee came back to me. His calm face when he said, "We sold your car for your sister." That moment became fuel. I knew I couldn't just steal the money back. I couldn't just scream at them again. That would only make me look like the bad guy. No, if I wanted real revenge, I needed something smarter. Something that would make them feel what I felt: humiliation, betrayal, and loss. See, for most people, losing a car might not sound like the end of the world. But for me, it was more than a car. It was my first taste of independence. It was all the hours I spent sweating in the hot sun, all the nights I came home with my feet sore from standing at work. And my parents took it away like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. That realization hit me hard. And with every step I took, the anger in me grew heavier until it transformed into something else. Determination. By the time I got to school, I had already made the first move. The night before, after my parents went to bed, I had reached out to someone I never thought I'd contact again: my Uncle David. Uncle David was my dad's younger brother, the black sheep of the family. Dad always called him irresponsible, a screw-up, someone who wasted his life on cars and motorcycles instead of getting a real job. But here's the thing. Uncle David owned a small garage. He fixed up cars, bought old junk, and sold them for profit. And most importantly, he actually cared about me. Whenever I visited him as a kid, he treated me like I mattered. So that night I called him. I told him everything, how I'd saved for years, bought my own car, only to have Dad sell it out from under me for Emma. David didn't even hesitate. "Come by tomorrow morning," he said. "I've got something for you." So that next morning, while Dad and Emma sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee and scrolling on their phones, I heard a sound outside. A deep rumble, the kind that made the windows shake just a little. I rushed to the door and opened it. And there it was, a black pickup truck, shiny and powerful, pulling into our driveway. Behind the wheel was Uncle David, grinning from ear to ear. "Morning, kid," he shouted as he climbed out. "You didn't think I'd let your old man pull that kind of stunt, did you?" I stood frozen for a second. My heart was pounding, because parked in the back of his truck, strapped down with ropes, was another car. It wasn't brand new. In fact, it looked rough. Rust along the doors, faded paint, dents here and there. But it was mine. Uncle David had brought me a replacement. By then, Dad had come to the door. His face twisted with annoyance. "David, what are you doing here?" David smirked. "Helping your son. Something you should have done yourself." My dad's jaw tightened. His eyes flicked toward me. For once, he didn't have a calm comeback. Emma walked up behind him, her arms crossed. "That's so ugly," she scoffed. "You can't actually drive that thing, Jason. Everyone will laugh at you." Her words stung, but at the same time, they gave me exactly what I needed. Motivation. That car in the driveway wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning. Because Uncle David didn't just bring me a car. He brought me an ally. Someone who knew about engines, about sales, about making something worthless shine again. I realized then, I wasn't just going to get revenge by driving another car. I was going to build something bigger, something that would prove every single person in that house wrong. That afternoon, I went with Uncle David back to his garage. The place smelled like oil and gasoline, but to me, it smelled like freedom. Rows of old cars, broken parts, and shiny tools lined the walls. David clapped me on the shoulder. "Kid, you've got fire in you. Use it. Don't waste your time fighting your dad and sister with words. Hit them where it hurts, their pride." I knew exactly what he meant. So we came up with a plan. I would spend every spare hour at his garage, learning, fixing, working. We would rebuild that car until it turned heads. And then, one day, I'd pull back into my parents' driveway, not as the boy they ignored, but as the guy who rose above their betrayal. Those weeks were hard. I'd go to school, then straight to the garage. My hands blistered from holding tools. My clothes smelled of oil, no matter how many times I washed them. But every dent I hammered out, every wire I fixed, every bolt I tightened, it felt like therapy. It felt like I was repairing more than just a car, I was repairing myself. And slowly, the old junker started to look different. Cleaner. Stronger. Like it had life again. Meanwhile, back at home, Dad barely spoke to me. Emma acted like she'd won. She flaunted her new clothes, her college supplies, the things she bought with the money from my car. But what they didn't know was that every insult, every smug grin, was fueling the fire inside me. One night, as I wiped grease from my hands, I looked at the car we'd been rebuilding. The headlights gleamed back at me, almost like they were alive. And in that reflection, I saw the future. The day I'd drive it back home. The day Dad's face would pale, and Emma's smirk would finally disappear. But that was only step one. Because Uncle David had taught me something else. Something even more dangerous. If I played my cards right, this wasn't just about having a car again. This was about showing them who I really was, and making them regret ever underestimating me. So, weeks later, when the car was finally ready, I washed it down, polished it until it sparkled under the garage lights, and took a deep breath. Tomorrow morning, I would pull into my family's driveway. And this time, it wouldn't just be another car sitting there. It would be the beginning of the revenge they never saw coming. The morning air was crisp as I turned the key in the ignition. The car I had rebuilt with Uncle David roared to life. Not quietly, not like the small hum of the car I once had, but loud, confident, and powerful. I gripped the wheel and smiled. This wasn't just metal and bolts anymore. This was me. Every scar on my hands, every long night, every insult Emma had thrown at me, it was all here, wrapped in steel and fire. And today, my family was about to see it. I drove down our street, the tires humming against the pavement, the engine echoing in the morning silence. Neighbors turned their heads. A few even waved. They probably remembered me as the kid walking to school after his car disappeared. Now I was coming back in something they couldn't ignore. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Dad and Emma standing on the porch. Emma had her usual smug look, but as soon as she saw the car, her jaw dropped. Dad squinted, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. I parked the car right in front of them and stepped out slowly, letting the door slam shut behind me. My boots crunched on the gravel. My hands still smelled faintly of grease. But in that moment, I felt like I was 10 feet tall. "Jason, what is this?" Dad finally asked, his voice tight. I smirked. This is what happens when you underestimate me." Emma scoffed, trying to hide her shock. "That thing is ugly. You probably begged Uncle David to give it to you." But I didn't even flinch. I had been waiting for this moment. I pulled something out of my pocket, a folder. Inside it were receipts, notes, and photos of me working day and night at Uncle David's garage. Proof that I had built this car with my own 2 hands. I handed the folder to Dad. "This isn't charity. This is work. Real work. Something you never gave me credit for." Dad opened the folder. His eyes scanned the papers, his face growing darker with every page. For once, he didn't have anything to say. Emma, however, couldn't stay quiet. "So what? You built a junk car. Big deal. At least Dad actually supports me, unlike you. You're just bitter because I'm the favorite." Her words cut deep. But I had prepared for this. I took a deep breath and said, "You're right, Emma. You are the favorite. Dad sold my car, the one I worked for, just to give you everything you wanted. But tell me something. What happens when people finally see who you really are?" She frowned. "What are you talking about?" That's when I pulled out my phone. On it was a video I had recorded weeks earlier, when Emma had accidentally bragged to her friends on a call about how she manipulated Dad. She had laughed about how easy it was to get money from him, how she deserved it more than me because Jason was just a loser. I hit play. The sound of her voice filled the driveway. Emma's face turned pale. Dad's expression hardened. "Is this true?" Dad asked her slowly. Emma stammered, "Dad, it was just a joke. I didn't mean." But the damage was done. For the first time in years, Dad didn't look at me with disappointment. He looked at her, and there was anger in his eyes. "I sold your brother's car for you. I trusted you. And this is how you talk about it." His voice shook. Emma tried to cry her way out of it, but I didn't stay to watch. I had already said what I needed to say. Instead, I turned back to my car. I ran my hand across the hood, feeling the smooth paint, the weight of my own hard work. And I realized something. This revenge wasn't about making Emma cry. It wasn't even about making Dad feel guilty. It was about showing myself that I didn't need their approval anymore, that I was stronger than their betrayal. I looked over my shoulder at Dad. You made your choice. Now I've made mine. I won't let you treat me like I don't matter again. He didn't stop me. He didn't yell. He just stood there in silence, holding the folder of proof, finally realizing what he had done. As I slid back into the driver's seat, Emma shouted, "You'll regret this, Jason. You think you're better than us." I revved the engine, the sound drowning out her words. Then I smiled. "No," I said. "I'm just finally better than the way you treated me." And with that, I drove off, leaving them standing in the driveway, Dad holding the truth in his hands, Emma exposed for who she really was. From that day forward, I spent more time at Uncle David's garage, learning, growing, and building. That car was just the beginning. I ended up buying and fixing more vehicles, eventually making more money than I ever imagined. Dad never apologized outright, but his silence that day was louder than words. And Emma? She never looked me in the eye again. Did it hurt, knowing my own family had betrayed me? Of course. But it also taught me something powerful. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone else. It's building yourself into someone they can never break again. And maybe you've felt something similar. Maybe someone you trusted let you down, treated you like you were less, or took something you worked hard for. So let me ask you, what would you have done in my place? Would you have walked away, or would you have fought back? Tell me in the comments. I'll be reading every single one. And if you want to hear more stories like mine, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because trust me, this isn't the last time someone thought they could play games with me.